stocks you have, the more risk. The more bonds you have relative to stocks, you have less risk. You can control those decisions. And asset location is how much of your money do you put into a Roth IRA or into a 401k, into the bank accounts. So determining on what your goals are, you will determine where you want to put your money. The next thing is what you have no control over. I wish I had a crystal ball. I probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be working for anyone. If I had a crystal ball and knew what the markets were going to do, I'd be doing it on my own. But no one knows, not even the professional knows what the markets are going to do tomorrow, for the next year, or the next 20 years. So by figuring out how much risk you take will determine your market returns in the long run. The other thing we don't know and we can't control is policies. Who knows what Congress is going to do with taxes this year? They're talking about a tax cut for the middle class, but it looks like a tax cut for the wealthy, of course. Who knows what they're going to do for savings? There was talks about not letting your 401k contributions be pre-tax. There's talk about making all of your income taxable first, then allowing you to save. Well, if that was the case, most of us wouldn't be able to save as much because we'd really be paying more in taxes. So those are the things we can't control. What we can do is be educated and know what the rules are and how best to take advantage of them. And finally, we have some control. Bob's jumping ahead of me. I think I heard someone in here saying you had someone come in here to talk about healthy living. We have some control over longevity. A lot of that is genetics, but if you're eating healthier or you're working out, things like that could help you live longer, healthier lives. You have some control over that. And if you continue to educate yourself and learn new skills, you have some control over your employment and your earnings as well. So the next page is just talking about where does retirement income come from? And that's the three-legged stool. Everyone knows Social Security. You see it, the taxes come out of your paycheck. Social Security is somewhat hemorrhaging money. There will be changes. The last time there were big changes to Social Security was with Ronald Reagan and his administration. Someone soon will need to do something for Social Security. It probably won't impact most of you. It'll probably impact me more so than everybody else. How many people in here or their spouse will have a pension waiting for them in retirement? One person. 2, 3? Okay. Decent amount. So still, most of us don't have pensions available to us. So we have only two sources of income: Social Security and investments, which is why saving as much as you can is very important. And how you invest it is extremely critical because it's such a big piece of your income in the future. So just a little bit about Social Security. A lot of people are scared. They wonder, will it be there when it's time for me to retire? They wonder how much it will be. They wonder what is the best age to begin receiving it. I can tell you it will be there. Will it be there in the same form it is today? We don't know. But it will be there because people are still contributing to the system. As long as people are working and contributing and paying taxes, you will have some Social Security. How much will it be depends on your 35 years, highest years of income. That's how your Social Security is calculated. And what's the best age? Well, you can start it at any time from 62 to 70 years old. Every year you delay, Social Security goes up at least 8%. And we'll get to that on the next slide. But the longer you live, in general, it makes sense to delay Social Security. If you think you're going to live to the mid-80s or later, it usually makes sense to delay. I also know Social Security is a deeply personal issue. A lot of people tell me, look, I've worked my entire life. I was forced to put into the system, and I want to take it as soon as possible. That's perfectly fine. As long as you build a plan around that and you know that that's enough income for you, I'm not against it. The next slide will tell you the average Social Security benefit is $1,335 a month. What I suggest everyone in here do is go online, ssa.gov, They used to send you your statements every year. They don't do that anymore. But if you go online, you can register and you can download your statement. So you know if you work to 62, what your benefit will be. If you take it at 66 or 70, what will be coming in the door for Social Security. The truth is, most of us rely on Social Security for over 50% of their retirement income. So just kind of ask yourself, can you live off of roughly $1,300 a month? It's part of planning. Right now, the trust fund is taking in more than it pays out, so that's good news. But starting in 2019 is when everyone in this room starts retiring. Social Security is going to pay out more money than people like me are putting into the system. And that means the system could run out by 2034. So at some point, they're going to make changes. They might tax the higher earning income people more, so the more money's going in. They might say, I can't take Social Security at 67. I might have to wait till 68 or 69. There's a lot of things they can change to improve the system. It won't just be one thing. The last piece on Social Security is saying that if you were born in 1954 or earlier, your full retirement age is 66, which means you can still earn income in retirement and take Social Security without anything being withheld. You get 100% of your benefit. If you take it earlier, a lot of people take it at 62, 25% of it is reduced. You don't get that money, and it's permanently reduced. So you're giving up 25% of your benefit just to take it earlier. But every year you wait beyond 66, it grows at 8% a year. So remember that perfect investment. It doesn't exist. This is pretty close to a perfect investment. 8% a year guaranteed. I can't guarantee that in any investment vehicle. So that's a good benefit to waiting. You get 132% of your overall pie if you wait. The only reason you might not do this is if you think you don't have family history, your parents passed away in their early 70s, you want to take that as soon as you can, and I completely understand that. What they're doing now and the changes they've made in the past is that everyone who's born later on, so if you're born 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. So you can't get your full benefit for a full year later. They'll probably change it and make full retirement age even later pretty soon. So the last thing, a lot of people are not aware of that if you're a widow and you were married for 9 or more months, you can actually start receiving Social Security as early as 60. The next one, if you were divorced, a lot of people don't know, if you were married for 10 or more years, and let's say you weren't working during that time, or your spouse's income was higher, you can take 50% of your ex's benefits starting as early as 62. So if you were divorced and you were married for 10 or more years, I highly suggest calling and speaking to Social Security because there could be free money on the table for you. And finally, if one of the parents passed away, there could be additional benefits for the parents or for children who are minors. So we'll go a little bit into the rules of some qualified plans. This is some of the nitty-gritty. There are a lot of different retirement plans out there. You guys have 401ks, but there are pensions and TSPs, profit-sharing plans, and SEPs and Simples and Roths. Most of them have the same rules. And there are different tax rules and tax penalties for each of these plans. Taxes can be up to 39.6%, or actually 50%. There's a 50% penalty. And we're going to go into some of these different penalties and tax issues next. So the first one most people should be aware of is that if you pull your money out of a retirement too soon, so before age 59 and a half, you would pay a 10% penalty. That says tax, but it's actually a 10% penalty, plus taxes. So let's say you pull out $10,000, your income instead of being $40,000 that year, you're going to be taxed at $50,000, plus you're going to pay a 10% penalty on that withdrawal. There are some exceptions but most people don't qualify for these exceptions for taking money out of a retirement plan too early. The next tax situation most of you are going to have to be aware of is what's called a required minimum distribution. Has anyone heard of RMDs? Couple heads nodding. Well, when you turn 70 and a half, the IRS says, you've put money into this account, you didn't pay taxes on it, we want our money. So they're going to start forcing you to take money out of your 401k plan when you turn 70 and a half years old. And let's say you have to take out $10,000 that first year. If you forget and you don't take out what's required, not only do you have to still pull that money out and pay taxes on it, but you have to pay a 50% penalty on what you were supposed to take out. So $10,000 you have to take out plus a $5,000 penalty. This is probably the biggest penalty that exists, and it can affect everyday working people. So this is why it's so important to make sure as you get older, especially if you're not familiar in understanding your finances, to make sure you do not miss that required distribution.
How is that RMD information communicated with
So
any
it's
kind of 401k?
with a
balance or-
401k plan, typically you have to take it from the 401k itself. So a letter will go out. Some plans might force it out. You probably know more about that than I would, but some plans might force it out. Others might just send you a letter. IRAs are very different. A lot of people take their 401ks when they retire. Maybe they have multiple companies they work for and they put all their money in one IRA. Well, you can figure out the required withdrawal from 4 different IRAs and take it all from one. So the IRA companies, say Fidelity or E-Trade, they can't force that money to come out. They'll remind you, they'll send you a letter, but it's up to you, the investor, to choose to make sure you withdraw that amount. And you got to calculate it. And it's a complicated formula for how to calculate. It's based on what the value of the account was at the end of the previous year, divided by a life expectancy factor that the IRS has on a table. So the first year for most married people is going to be about 3.6% of the account you have to withdraw. Hopefully you're earning 5 or 6% on your investments, so your accounts are still growing, but at some point the withdrawals are going to get higher as you get older, and your account value might start coming down.
And then delayed.
Other- Yeah, so there are some exceptions. If you are not a 5% owner in the company, which we're not here, if you're still working past 70, you don't have to take your required distribution from the company plan you're working for. If you have an IRA or another 401k plan out there, you still have to take those. But if you're working at over 70 and a half, you don't have to take the distribution from that company's plan. Finally is financial planning. To me, this is the most important thing all of us should have is a financial plan. Financial planning is really about one, organization. It's knowing what we have, where we have it. For most of you that are married in here, I bet one person manages the family finances and the other one doesn't have a clue. I see a lot of heads nodding. Financial planning to me is about getting the spouse involved and helping them understand, because if suddenly you're not here, you get hit by the proverbial bus, what is your spouse going to do? They're going to have no idea. That's why I'm a big proponent of having a relationship with a trusted person to educate the spouse and make sure they make correct decisions. It's about having priorities. Everyone's priorities are going to be different. Some of you, it's just simply buying a car. Others, it's can I travel in the future? Can I give money to my grandchildren to make sure they have a good college education? And it can be as simple as just budgeting. I meet a lot of people. I was fortunate to grow up in a family where my parents taught me with little buckets that here's for saving, here's for giving to charity, here's for spending. But a lot of us grow up and really don't know the value of money and how to take care of it. And so that's what financial planning is. And so we talk a little bit about maintaining a relationship with a trusted advisor. It's not just a financial advisor. It could be an accountant. It could be an estate attorney for doing your wills. But an advisor is going to be someone you trust for advice. They're going to keep you up to date on tax rules and regulations. They're going to educate you and make you informed and know how your investments are performing and help prevent you from making bad decisions. They're going to make sure you're keeping up with inflation. They're going to understand your personal situation and hopefully give you ideas for new strategies you haven't thought of. And the best advisors should be proactive. They should add value. They should disclose any conflicts that they have, and they should be focused on you, the client, and not on recommending a product that benefits them over you. The basics of financial planning are, number one, really just setting goals. For some of you, it's buying a car. For some, it's maybe saving for college. Could be buying a home. It could be planning for a 35-year retirement. So some goals are simple and some are more complex. First thing is, how smart are your goals? They have to be specific. If I want to retire, well, that's pretty broad, but I want to retire at 65 and I want to spend $4,000 a month. Can I do that? They have to be measurable. They have to be attainable. If I retire with $500,000 in my 401k, but I want to now move to $1 million house, that's not very attainable. We want to be realistic. They have to be relevant and they have to be timely. So defining what your goals are really is the most important thing. You have to know your income, know your expenses. This is the nasty B word, a budget. But honestly, the most important thing you can do before you retire is understand what income you're going to have coming in, what's going to be coming in the door through Social Security, what income can your investments generate for you, expenses. What's going out the door? Is the mortgage paid off before you retire, or are you going to have that mortgage for a couple of years? Do you have car payments? Do you have credit cards? How much are you spending just on food and groceries and utilities? Knowing what you have coming in and what's going out can tell you, do you have an extra surplus, or are you going to have a shortfall? And doing that before you retire is extremely important. And sometimes we force clients to do it, and they say it was eye-opening. Because when you're doing it together, you realize maybe what the other is spending on that you didn't know, and you're going to have to plan for that going forward. Most importantly, regardless of what you're putting into your retirement plan, everyone should have money set aside in a money market or CDs or checking and savings that can be used for emergencies. We all get into a fender bender. We need to pay our deductible. We have medical issues. We have to get a new roof on our home or a new furnace at some point. You shouldn't have to draw from your 401k for those things. Hopefully you've been able to put aside a certain amount of money. If there's 2 of you working, 3 months of expenses would be good. If it's just one income, strive for 6 months worth of savings that's safe in the bank. One thing I know is every one of you probably has a different amount that should be sitting and checking that makes you feel comfortable and helps you sleep at night. We can't define that for you, but you should know what that number is and strive to get there. Most importantly, this is mostly for the younger people in the room, but the earlier you start, the more compounding will help you. Has anyone in here heard of compound interest? Compound interest is when your money grows and earns interest, and then it earns interest on top of that interest, and it grows very quickly. So if you start early and you grow, 5% on $600,000 is going to be much more than 5% of $10,000. So if you haven't started saving and you're in your 50s or 60s, you have to play catch up. Now's the time to do it and start putting away as much as you can. Questions? It's kind of broad, but any personal questions, I'll hang around afterwards if you have anything you want to talk about afterwards. I got some cards here. If you have any personal questions, feel free to ask as well.